one of the best, fantastic player for us, fantastic servant. Another guy who really got the club as well. He admitted that himself, that he had no idea about Celtic until he got there. But listen, I don't know, Scott. I don't know what the transfer fee would be to bring him back. I don't know that Brighton would be prepared to take a big hit on that or whatever. But we paid 11 million for Arne Engels. If we could get Matt O'Reilly for money like that, why wouldn't you? We got double that for him in the transfer fee. But you know what? Even just on a short term thing, I'm just thinking of the player himself. If he's unhappy and he's not playing, maybe a wee short term loan for us. Even for the first half of the season to Christmas, and then that will give us time to maybe see what the future really holds for him. A short term loan or even a season long loan, whatever, just anything. But I would definitely have Matt O'Reilly back in a heartbeat. I honestly feel that we've not been the same team in the midfield area since he left. With different types of players in there now. You saw Luke McCowan getting a game. You saw, Arne Engels. You saw Paulo Bernardo. But none of these guys are the kind of player that Matt O'Reilly was. They're just not. They're different players, and they offer different things in their own right. But they're not Matt O'Reilly players. So for me, if there was any way possible, Scotty, to bring him back, as I say, first and foremost for the lad himself, because he really enjoyed his football. When he was at Celtic, he played the game with a smile on his face. Quality player, goal scorer, set up merchant. He just had all the attributes there. Cool as a cucumber. You saw with his penalty at Ibrox, absolute ice in his veins when he's in there. So definitely for me, it would be a no-brainer, Scotty. I just don't know how it would work. But as I say, if the window's open now at the beginning of the week, I would be looking at even just do something on a loan to just get him out of there and get him back to Celtic, and then we can look at the future somewhere down the line. If we could even get him for a season long loan, it would be unbelievable. That would give us a year. That would give us a year to sort something more permanent out with him. You know what I mean? So for me, absolutely, would take Matt O'Reilly back tomorrow morning.
Aye, bang on, mate, bang on. I just wanted to read this out quickly. This is a fantastic message to receive. So Eloise Pitstop. Hello, boys. I'm Penelope's mum, and I want to thank you for having her and my granddad. The club have reimbursed Grandad's season ticket along with a letter of thanks. For him being 80 years a fan, hail, hail. That's an absolutely brilliant comment. So thank you very much.
Discussed that on the show, Scotty, with Penelope when she was talking about taking her granddad to the game and the age of her granddad as well. As that man's season ticket should be free. Clearly contacted the club, pushed that forward, and the club did the right thing. Congratulations. Well done. Absolutely well done.
Absolutely brilliant news. Brilliant news. Paddy made a great point there, Andy. It's something I think could happen if we got him on loan, agreed a fee, and then paid the fee. Because he's only been there a season, as we know. It's been injury plagued. He's getting played out of position. He's publicly, slated the manager basically, which isn't like him. I know that he did have a few digs at Ange when he left. A couple of subtle digs at Ange when he left Celtic, saying that he wasn't a people person and things like that. But like I said, they're listening to offers, mate. Is it a deal that you think Celtic could do, and how much a transfer fee do you think Brighton would be willing to take for him?
Oh, I don't know about that. I'll tell you something though. I was devastated when O'Reilly left us because he was such an important player in their team. A fantastic player, just real finesse. His commitment as well, utterly committed to playing for Celtic. And I can remember when he first signed, he was kind of overawed with the stadium, and he was really excited about playing for Celtic. And he was a fantastic player for us. I know he had his kind of up and down moments, but I think overall, just a great signing. Obviously, he's been enticed back down the road to Brighton. It's no work to aid the worst possible start to his career at Brighton, getting injured right at the very start in his first game. So he's pretty unfortunate there. I was gutted for him as much as I didn't want him to go. When he does go, you want him to be a success. He's a very respectful young man. Do you know what I mean? He had his heat screwed on. And you're right, he did have a slight dig at Ange. I think it was all kind of, just didn't feel it was personal enough with the players, wee bit standoffish. And obviously when Brendan came in, he's totally different. He'll put his arm around the player. and he talked to players individually, and I think he really respected Brendan for that. Obviously, going down the road, he's maybe not had the same kind of affection or that kind of connection with the manager, and the manager's just no kind of took to him. I'm just not convinced that he's going to come back to Celtic. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it happen. I could see him maybe ending up in Italy or something like that, or somewhere like that. But of course, I would love to have him back. Just an absolute quality player. So we'll just need to wait and see what happens. Even as you say, if we get him on a kind of loan period, would be brilliant now for a season-long loan, and then see what happens for there. But always like to see Matt O'Reilly back at Celtic. I loved him as a player. Very gifted young man. We did great business with him as well. So we're selling him on, considering the amount we bought him for, you know. I'd be delighted if he came back. I'm just not convinced if that's going to happen.
Aye. So Robert there's asking, sorry I missed the start of the show. You guys going out Monday, Wednesday, Friday from now on. We're looking to start a Monday show, yes. We are looking to do that, but it's going to be a wee while away yet. We need contributors and stuff.
That was a plan all along when we first started. We had that vision what we wanted to do, but obviously it comes down to contributors and numbers and time and establishing ourselves and taking it kind of one step at a time. So the last thing you want to do when you start a podcast is just fire everything out all at one time, because you get caught up in everything and you get swarmed and flooded, and it's a lot to do for a podcast, as you know, Scotty. When you're putting everything together, it takes time, you know. So
yeah,
it's not just anybody that we're looking for, but it's got to be the right person that kind of suits the podcast and suits him as well, time wise and stuff like that. So we'll just need to wait and see what happens. But that is a plan.
Yeah, just keep an eye on the community posts, lads and lasses. We will certainly looking to always make the podcast better and bigger for sure. So, Kaiser, Matt O'Reilly, there is rumours again. They are listening to offers. Brighton, is it a deal you could see Celtic making?
I think so. I think if we have the capability, we have the cash there, and like I suggested there by Paddy, bringing him in on a season-long loan, letting him find his feet here as well again, that's an easy sell to Brighton as well, because they've invested in the player. Whether or not they would part with him and let us put the money up for him, I don't know, you know what I mean? Because they have invested in him. They're wanting to look and make money. He has suitors, he has people who are interested. Incredibly handsome guy.
Thanks. Cheers, mate.
Just too good looking. You know what I mean? I met him outside Ibrox, and he was like, get a selfie with Kaiser, and I was like, you can beat that. Far too good looking, man. Bolt. You know what I mean? Made me look absolutely horrendous standing beside him. I was like, oh, you Bolt, you big skinny, you get away from me. But a fantastic player, absolute Ferrari of a player. And I think if we could bring him back into that area of the midfield, it's just would absolutely thrive. That's us really equipping for the Champions League. As you know yourself, he's touched on it. I think he did fire parting shots at Ange Postecoglou. I think that was more in relation to Ange's hands-off managerial style, where Ange would just sit on the hill and watch the training. He wouldn't really interact with the players. And we all know Brendan Rodgers is a fantastic man-manager. So he's right in there, putting his in. He really got some of the best performances I've seen out of Matt O'Reilly. He really helped mould him into the player he is right now. I would love to see him come back. I would love it. I don't know the ramifications and the ins and outs of it. Usually when deals like this come up, where there's a possibility of this happening, it tends to make sense for all sides. And that's what makes you think, here, this could have legs here. It would make sense for Brighton because they want to recoup money on Matt O'Reilly. It would make sense for us because he found a home here, he established himself here, and he could rebuild himself up, suffered a few injuries and stuff. But for me, it would make perfect sense to bring him back up the road rather than anything else.
Aye, bang on. Well done, lads. Enjoyed that chat there. So another player, Paddy, that has been linked with us is now being linked with Sunderland. They're looking to put together, according to reports, a £10 million package for Lennon Miller. Again, is this a guy you'd like to see Celtic sort of push the boat out for? He started for Scotland the other night, so he's now a full Scotland international, which will obviously add to his, his price as well, mate. Getting the Scotland caps and things like that. Is it a deal you'd like to see Celtic make?
I would like to see the Celtic do the deal for the player, Scott, but there's not a hope that Celtic pay that kind of money for a player in the SPFL. Not a hope. No chance. I don't even know if there's any real substance in the talk about Sunderland. I've seen nothing from Sunderland themselves or anybody linked to Sunderland. So it could be a bit of kite flying from the agent, just trying to, maybe push up the price or maybe, get a deal. But listen, the guy's out of contract at the end of next season. His contract runs out at. Like we went as far as we could to get Scott Brown from Hibs. We wouldn't go the extra mile with John McGinn, and I would hazard a guess, and that I think that's once you get to about 4 or 5 million for any player in Scotland, you're asking a lot from Celtic at that. I honestly don't see the club doing that. It'll come down to the player as well, Scott. He's obviously aware of the speculation. He seems to be a cool, level-headed young lad. He spoke about it the other day, and he said it's part and parcel of the game. I'm just concentrating on my football. Just the usual sound bites. But he's a Celtic fan. He comes from a Celtic family, what have you. So, listen, it's bound to be an attraction for him. But the deal has to be right for Celtic. People forget that to make a transfer deal, you need 3 parties. You need a buyer, you need a seller, and you need the player to be happy as well. So a lot of that goes into that. So what are Motherwell? What's Motherwell's baseline for him? And like I honestly don't believe that Motherwell. I think Motherwell would be well aware they're not going to get north of 5 million for him from a Scottish club. I would very much doubt that. So if Motherwell are starting to talk about 10 million, I think you can count Celtic out of that, and rightly so, because I honestly haven't seen enough of the lad to justify spending 10 million on him. They talked recently about maybe 4 or 5 million, something like that. He definitely has potential. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But he's a player I would love to see coming in, because again, if we learn the lessons of the John McGinn saga, John McGinn could have been a potential captain of the club or a replacement for Callum McGregor or Scott Brown, whatever you want to call it. Lennon Miller has the potential to be, a very, very good Celtic signing as well. And at his age, he's got many, many years, ahead of him. So he definitely is a player I would like to see us going for, but I honestly don't think Celtic would go to that length to sign him. If you're starting to talk about 10 million, you can forget about it.
Yeah, it's difficult to compete with that, Andy, isn't it? I mean, £10 million package, the sort of wages that Sunderland could offer as well. They're now back in the Premier League. I think we've missed the boat with this, boy. What are you thinking yourself?
I don't think Celtic are seriously interested in getting him, I've got to be honest. I don't think that I've heard enough real kind of chat that they're seriously even looking at him, which is pretty scandalous that a young Scottish player at that age who supports the club, very talented, great future ahead of him. And you just imagine if he did spend time with Brendan Rodgers, someday it's been proven to really improve players, what kind of player he could turn out to be. But obviously you're talking about prices like that. They are not going to pay money like that. It just simply isn't going to happen. You get Sunderland just fresh up into the Premier League, money to burn. It's just crazy money down there when you're talking about very, very average players, the amount they pay out for them. So if they can get a player of Lennon Miller's talent for £10 million, they're going to snap him up, because that's pennies down there. And it's very hard for us to compete with that. Remember, he was at Celtic and his dad took him out, because he's obviously looked at the system in Celtic and thought, I can't see him getting a real opportunity here. Whereas you go to a team like Motherwell, listen, I'd be the same. I love Celtic, but if my boy was a football player, I'd be in two minds whether to put him into the Celtic Academy if he was good enough, and keep him there, because can you see a real kind of pathway to the first team? It looks very blurred at the moment, doesn't it, the way things are? I know they're trying to improve it. In fact, just talking about Darren Day, he was the guy that was meant to be bridging that gap, and he's now away assistant manager at assistant coach at Swansea. So, we need to work on that again. he's definitely a player I'd like to see, a young, gifted player. But I can't see Celtic going for him. I just don't think they're serious enough about doing a deal to get Lennon Miller. So I think that their eyes are elsewhere. It might surprise us, but I doubt it very much, which is a shame, real shame.
Kaiser, it's somebody we have spoke about on this pod many times. What are you thinking, mate? Are you thinking it's a goer?
Yeah, I do, lads. I'm a polar opposite of Paddy and Andy there. I'm like, Celtic go and approach Motherwell and offer, say, in the region of 7 million for this boy, 20% sell-on clause, maybe rising to 8 million, given performances, scoring goals and performing for Celtic. I can see that happening. I mean, we're selling players out of the Scottish League, competing in this environment domestically and getting 20 and 30 million for them. I think it's a bit of a slap in the face to suggest that players developing elsewhere in the league are not worth at least 10 million or around about that value. Look at the players who are Scottish players performing in Italy right now. They've extended their value endless amounts. There's a lot of talk of Miller maybe going to Italy, Sunderland being interested. It's very easy, very easy for Celtic to put a £10 million package together. That's a package rising. Let's say the bid starts, initial bid at 6 million, 20% sell-on clause, deal rising to 7 or 8 million over the next 2 years, given a certain level of performances or standards made at the club, benchmarks achieved. Really, we don't want another John McGinn situation, and we can't afford to let such talented young Scottish players move away, especially when we need them for the Champions League quota as well. We need this homegrown talent. We need that in our team. It reminds me a lot of Paul Lambert. He's just got an air about him. You can tell the boy's quality. There's not anywhere we fail to make money on this young man. Of course, touch Harry Wood. Football's a fickle business and a fickle game. Injuries and stuff happen. But other than that, I think it'd be a sell for life. And that's just something that you just can't overlook. I think £10 million is absolute buttons in modern football. To suggest it's like bank breaking for Celtic. I think we've got like 170 million in the bank. Champions League money still coming in. We've got cash to burn there, lads. And okay, Motherwell want it, but the more money you put into the league, the more money goes across the league, the better those teams become as well. They start competing domestically, buying better players, bringing in players that they know that Celtic might be attracted to. The youth development system at Motherwell is one of the finest in Scotland. Absolutely brilliant. They give the young guys a chance. Miller's been, playing for the club now since he was 17, 18, came right through. He played for the first team. He's now Scotland international. He's capped. For me, it's a no-brainer. Get this deal done, Celtic. Stop resting on your laurels and thinking maybe because he does have an affinity for the club and a love for the club, you can take your time. Bring some sort of Luke McCowan deal at the last minute. I would hesitate against that. I want Celtic to pull the finger out and make this happen.
Good points. I'm with Kaiser. I think 6-7 million would get the deal done, and as Michelle said there as well, why not? We're not going to lose money on the boy. I know that he is playing for Motherwell and all the rest of it, but the boy is definitely quality, and he's in the Scotland squad and everything now. So why not go and get him, Celtic? As I'm with Kaiser, I would say go and get him as well. So Michelle mentioned it in the comments there. Benjamin Nigrin asked the guys to have a look at him earlier on the old YouTube. I had a look at him myself. Very elegant player. Matt O'Reilly-esque for me. Can play on the left wing, can play through the middle. Very clever looking player. So Celtic have formally opened talks with that team there over the potential signing of Swedish attacker Benjamin Nygren, but face stiff competition from several European clubs and Major League Soccer sides. The 23-year-old attacker, who netted 16 goals and provided 4 assists last season, is entering the final 6 months of his contract with the Danish club. They're reportedly willing to sell for around £2 million to avoid losing him on a free in January. Brendan Rodgers has identified Nygren as a key target to bolster Celtic's attacking options. The versatile forward, capable of playing on either wing, as a central striker or as an attacking midfielder role would add depth and creativity to the squad. His recent form has also seen him break into the Swedish national team, scoring twice in 4 appearances. However, Celtic are reportedly not alone in the pursuit. Belgian side Anderlecht are reportedly keen on bringing Nygren back to Belgium, where he previously played for Genk. Copenhagen are also interested, although reports suggest Nygren is looking to move outside Scandinavia. Additionally, MLS clubs including San Diego, that team's sister club, have shown interest in the player. With the ability to negotiate freely with other clubs from July the 1st, Nygren's future is set to be decided in the coming weeks. Celtic will hope that the lure of Champions League football and their track record of developing talent can sway the Swedish international to choose Glasgow as his next destination. Patrick, did you manage to have a look at this guy today on YouTube? And if you did, what's your thoughts?
Yep, I took a look, Scott, and I have to say, the guy looks very impressive, although, sometimes you have to caution yourself whenever it's YouTube. We've seen that before with Marco Tilio was one who I thought was a worldie until we've seen him playing in the hoops. But this guy looks very, very good. He seems to be a predominantly left-footed player, but he does seem comfortable with both feet. What I did notice was, as you say, he seems to be coming in from both sides. But when he does cut in, he comes in off the right touchline, similar to what Nicholas Kuhn does. He comes in and he hits it with that left foot. He's got a really, really beautiful left foot. Lovely cultured passer with his left foot. Some of the goals that were scored by other players were set up by Nygren. Great setup merchant as well as scoring himself. As I say, just really effective player coming in, especially from the right side on his left foot. Super link up is what I noticed with other players. He's brilliant at bringing other players into play. Some lovely wee 1-2s on the edge of the box with his teammates, which set up other guys. And when he does get into the kill zone, he's an excellent finisher, a really tidy finisher. He looks very, very cool, very icy cool when he gets in there. He's not the sort of player that seems to panic and blast the ball over the bar. He seems to be able to cool himself down and slot it away. So he knows how to finish. So for me, the money they're talking, it would be absolutely no gamble whatsoever. I would suggest that we get the deal done because there are other clubs who are lining up looking at him. Is he a potential replacement for Nicholas Kuhn? Is that what they're looking at? Or is he more of a replacement for Jota until he gets back fit? We have no idea what Brenda's plans are, but just from what I've seen of him so far, Scott, he looks very, very impressive. And again, Sweden are one of these nations that, they don't seem to cap, ordinary players. Everybody that plays gets a cap for Sweden as decent player. They're always big, strong players and quality players from Sweden. It's a really good country. So from what I've seen of him, Scott, the short clips I watched this afternoon, he seems to be very good. And I would definitely take this guy, no problem at all.
Aye, Andy, somebody mentioned there, which is I didn't even think about this, by the way. It could potentially be that number 10 that we haven't got. We spoke about it on the podcast before. Hatate, Engels and McGregor are all very similar players, aren't they? And it's like they're kind of getting in each other's way. The three of them are very, very similar. If you played two of them and then him as a number 10, that's maybe a good shout as well that Brendan might be trying. But did you have a look at him, mate, on YouTube and what do you reckon?
I did, mate. Aye. All I seen was creativity, and I think we've really lacked that at times this season.
Yeah.
You were getting creative periods for him until after the new year, and he just kind of died a death. You're just talking about number 10s there, and sometimes I think Kuhn thinks he's a number 10, the way he cuts inside.
Yeah.
A lot of the times, and at times you want your winger to be a winger. He doesn't get it out enough for me. I like to look at this boy. Technically very good. And by the way, the Swedish league is actually no bad standard. I know we kind of look down on it, but I was there in Stockholm a couple of years ago, and went to watch a game, and I was impressed. I was impressed with the stadium as well, and the crowd, and I like their football. I think it's at a pretty good standard, and he's smashing it earlier. The thing is the competition on his signature. That's the only thing. Is Celtic's a big club, but it's not a big league. So it would need to be, you've got the carrot of the Champions League and winning trophies and possibly the way your kind of signing policy is come here, do well, and get a move to Europe, like one of the bigger leagues in Europe or down south. So that could be something. What is he, 22, 23, isn't he?
23, mate, aye.
Aye, he's at a good age, but really impressed with the footage. Listen, it's YouTube. I know we've said it before, they can look good on YouTube, but it does look good. You can tell his technical ability and all that, and he's creative as well. And as Paddy says, he's actually a tidy finisher and all very composed. So I'd definitely be up for that.
Aye, and Kaiser, Michelle put in the chat there that it looks like he has chosen Celtic as his next destination. Obviously, we're on the podcast, so we can't see anything, but fantastic news if that's the case. And have you managed to have a wee look at him yourself, mate?
Yeah, I did, mate. I had browsed over some of the footage on YouTube today. Absolute cavalier of a player as well, as the lads have touched on. Fantastic, absolute wand of a left foot, provider, skillful, silky, can come in off the wing or play through the middle. People in chat as well saying plays a number 10 as well. Of course, you see that he's got that ice in his vein, able to strike a ball and finish. We need that. It's an absolute no-brainer for me to bring this guy in at the value they're talking about, the kind of price. And I know people are like, oh, more development players. We're wanting like first team ready, Champions League ready players. But like we're going to need to beef this squad out as well. Well, you've seen what happened when we're in Bayern Munich game and they're bringing on subs for the bench of such quality, and our bench was lackluster to say the least. So we need that. We need that quality coming in. We need the quality all over. Jota's going to be out for a while as well. I think Jota's out until January or something. This guy looks fantastic for me. Definite step up for him coming to Celtic. Great ties with the Swedish national team, of course, through Henrik Larsson. How Henrik developed here and how he played here. I've always got a very high opinion of Celtic, and I've seen Chris saying, look to the left for the Swedish women. They're okay as well. I'm like, it's just my computer on that in here. You know what I mean? I'm solo. But yeah, definitely go for this one. As some suggested in the chat as well, like Kuhn, he was majestic. It's like a plastic bag on the wing. Just no touching him. Of course, he's going to cut inside because there's no one to cross the ball to at Celtic. We get 30 crosses a game and don't finish them. 10 corners a game and there's nobody sticking the head on it. So the guy needs to cut inside. There's a difference between knowing what someone's going to do and stopping them. When Nicholas Kuhn is on his game, he's absolutely untouchable. He's unstoppable. But his form did drop off, and I think he is one of the players we're at risk of losing. So any sort of players we're bringing in here, along with Hatate, Maeda, lots of players that other teams are going to be staring at with lustful eyes within Celtic right now. We need to be future planning and getting the T's crossed and the I's dotted. That's something I want to see from Celtic from when Ange was here as well. Also, rumours floating around of Brendan Rodgers extending his deal a further 2 years. So that would leave him 3 years left to run with the year he's got now and a 2-year extension. Loving that, loving the idea of that, the thought of that. Get that done as well. Get all the pieces locked in place, and let's build an empire. Let's build a Champions League side.
Yeah, bang on, lads. Again, bang on. We spoke about that with Brendan Rodgers. I think when Russell Martin was appointed, not far away from you, Kaiser, I think I would have been straight on to Dermot Desmond and signing a new 3-year deal if that's his opposition for the next 3 years. So let's hope that is the case. So 2 statements today from the SPFL, one good and one bordering on the ridiculous. We'll get to the good first, I should say. So Scottish football has hit new heights with the SPFL confirming a record-breaking season for attendances across all 4 divisions. Over 5.3 million fans passed through the turnstiles in 24-25, the highest total since the league's formation, and nearly 185,000 more than last year's record. It's the 3rd season in a row that attendance records have been broken. Celtic Park once again played a major part in those numbers. The club have consistently pulled in the biggest home crowds in the country, and away allocations for Celtic games often sell out quickly as well. The appetite to follow Brendan Rodgers' side, both home and away, remains as fierce as ever. A key driver in these booming league-wide totals. The SPFL issued a statement praising the phenomenal backing clubs have received and highlighting the importance of working with Police Scotland and the Scottish Government to ensure safe, enjoyable matchday experiences for everyone. The overwhelming majority of fans continue to contribute positively to the atmosphere and spectacle that defines Scottish football. So, Paddy, great news, first of all, from the SPFL. The bad news we will move on to, as I said, after this. But first of all, it's just good to see, mate. 3 years in a row, not transfer record, attendances have been broken. We have spoke about it on this podcast, how tight the SPFL was below us. It's just great to see, mate, that people are coming through the door and we're getting the crowds that our country deserve.
It's fantastic, Scott. And the one thing is, it's a real shot in the arm for the people who run the game, and it's a real slap in the face to the constant detractors of the Scottish game. Listen, we're not kidding ourselves. We're not Serie A or La Liga or any of these in terms of overall quality. But the one thing about the Scottish game is you see a good, honest, old-fashioned game of football. It's full of all the ingredients that we love about the game. It's full of effort and full of tackling and thunderous tackles and commitment and intensity, and that's what you want to see. This game that you see sometimes. If you watch Man City playing, no harm to Pep, but it's dull, boring football for me. This constant recycling the ball, they do anything but put the ball in the box. The Scottish League, you see a really good game of football. The one thing I would say is, like, if certain clubs hadn't been playing silly beggars with the ticket allocation, how much more could it not have been? If they had taken a leaf out of St Johnson's book, that the way they gave us more or less the three sides of the stadium at the last game. So I think they do need to look at that. I think the away clubs need to look at that as well. Listen, I can understand their hesitancy about handing over their stadium to Celtic fans, but as we said before, in the post-COVID era, where clubs are still trying to claw back the millions of pounds that were lost over the COVID season, I just don't understand it. It's a different matter if your fans are sitting there filling their seats, but they're not. And why would you have empty seats in your stadium if you have a paying customer who's willing to rock up and pay £30 for that seat? Why would you turn that guy away? I just don't understand it. I can't get my head around it. I just don't understand it at all. So everybody knows who they are. There are one or two serial offenders in Scotland, and they need to take a long look at themselves when they see these figures, because the figures could and should have been so much more. But it's a fantastic shot in the arm, Scott, for everybody. As I say, it's a real lift. I know people will take pot shots at it, and sometimes the English will give the Scottish League short shrift in general. But you know what? There's very little wrong with the product in Scotland. Very, very little wrong with the product, and I think we should be proud of it. Like everything else, there's always room for development and room for improvement. But it's really, really good to see, and it's good to see that the fans have returned in their droves after being locked out from COVID. So it's just wonderful news all around.
Yeah, some great points there, Paddy, and Andy. It does make a great point about these fans. I know you're a big one for this, mate. We've got Livingston coming up as well to the league. We sort of filled their stadium, didn't we, the last time? They gave us three sides of the stadium, I believe, if that was right. Kilmarnock, I think they're another one where they gave us both behind the goals, things like that. As Paddy said, once they stop doing all these things again, the record could have been better.
Livingston need to do that to survive, because I'm not even going to get into how I feel about Livingston and David Martindale. I'm absolutely gutted that they're in our league. Absolutely nothing to do with us, because you do get a good allocation when you go to Livingston. I totally understand that. Paddy's right, when they're cutting their nose off, they spite their face, and you're still looking at empty seats in a stadium, and they could be capitalising on that, and then they're moaning about the whole kind of structure, the financial structure, that they're struggling, and teams are, getting into liquidation and stuff like that, because you've got to utilise what you're getting. If somebody's flinging money at you, you're going to take it if you need it. It's just create some of the things that the allocations are just an absolute joke. Obviously, St Johnstone done that. towards the end of the season, they knew they were going down. They need the readies, So whenever it suits them, they're going to do that. They all seem to congregate and come together to kind of scupper a good atmosphere. And that's the thing. Scottish fans create, no matter what team it is, always a good atmosphere. You look down the road at the Premiership games, or the Premier League it's called now. You look at their chants and all that, and it's like you see these clips for the Major League soccer, and the fans, it's laughable like that, the chants they came out with. I seen a wee clip, and it was interviewing Chelsea fans. What's your favourite Chelsea song? And it was Chelsea, Chelsea, Chelsea. And it was about 10 people saying the same thing. That's what they've got. They've got no imagination when it comes to, supporting their team. You come to Scotland and it's full of imagination, it's full of passion, it's full of people that actually care about the game. And this is a country that hasn't got financial backing. So maybe, getting heavy financial backing in your league takes it the soul out of it. I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe we're better staying the way we are, the size we are. That's what I like about the Scottish game, and not just I'm not the biggest national team fan. I like World Cups and Euros and stuff like that, but the Scottish fans get away. They're world renowned for their behaviour, the whole party atmosphere, and you look down the road and look what they're famous for, causing trouble. So we definitely have a good product, especially when it comes to the fan bases of the teams and stuff, and even your wee teams as well. You still get your local teams that the hardcore still turn up and support their team. So you've got to take your hat after them and say, well, apart from Livingston, their fans turn up in the same motor, and it's a two-seater. But I think we definitely it should be praised for the way that the fans are supporting the football in this country.
Aye, there's quite a cost of living crisis and thing going on in the UK at the minute, Kaiser. So it's an expensive day out, as Paddy will allude to as well, coming out for Ireland and things like that. It's just great to see, and as Paddy said as well, a massive shot in the arm for Scottish football.
Yeah, it is one of the largest supported per capita in the entire world, Scottish football. This podcast as well, Legends, the fastest growing on YouTube, one of the best podcasts. Make sure you out there are smashing the subscribe and slapping that bell. Give the bell a wee slap while you're there. You'd never miss a podcast again. Always be in here checking the ads out. That is just the passion of Scottish fans, the imagination. Whatever your side is, whatever your team is, I've got family in Dunfermline. They're Hearts fans. I've seen Sammy the Tammy with a cardboard tank shooting T-shirts at the crowd. It's the imagination's there, the ability's there for us to sell out. And Paddy's spot on. It could have been so much better if teams would just stop cutting allocations and take advantage of the money that's there. Improve your squad, improve your facilities, get rid of the cursed carpets. Obviously, Andy's got hatred for Livingston. That's because Martindale's got a big tick bill. he's importing that white powder in the back of Andy's truck. Andy's had enough of it, man. He's like, had enough of him. But yeah, definitely. We could do so much better. Highlight the game so much better. There's enough people throw accusations at the Scottish League. We know people down south call it a farmers' league, a pub league. But one thing's for sure, it's absolutely riddled with passion, and support love it. And I would rather be a pub league than some sort of tourist league where people are gangs of Karens chanting and they're not sitting in their seat, sit down at the stadium and stuff like that. Not for me. Like I love being an impassioned supporter. I love singing and dancing in the stands. And the first thing you see people doing nowadays is they pull their phone out and they start recording you. I don't care about that either. Legends, record this. Make sure you post it on social media. Tag a Four Leaf Clover podcast. Get everybody in here. Get them subscribing. Get them onto the show. The lads have highlighted that. We're all looking for new contributors as well to come in and help us out. Looking to add the Monday show. Scotty, Andy, Paddy, Michelle, everybody in the background, Jerry and that. There's so much hard work that goes into these shows. The topics, to be a host of a show it's a real talent. Like, I love to just turn up and talk. That's my best ability. Turn up and talk. Whatever we've got to talk about, doesn't matter. I can talk for hours about Celtic. But putting the show together, structuring it and allowing it to frame it and allow other people to talk is a hard thing to do as well. So Andy's spot on. We're looking for the right people, not just any people. So if you're out there and you're interested in coming on, watch those community pages, get a wee suggestion in there, type to the lads and let them know. I've
also, guys, I just want to say that's my Twitter handle.
Yeah.
So you can even get a hold of me on that if you want.
Get Andy, Paddy's Twitter handle's there as well. Massive Facebook group Paddy has as well, flying the flag for the lads.
Planet Celtic,
Yeah, we could be so much better. We could do so much more. These clubs could do so much more. I suggested before, right, okay, you're cutting allocation. It looks terrible on TV. Why not just charge Celtic fans the £30, the £40 for the ticket, and let your own fans in for a £5 each? Let it open the full stands and fill it up with school kids. Ensure your future support. The fans are out there. We've seen Aberdeen parade the trophy to over 100,000 people in the streets of Aberdeen. That's the kind of support that they have access to should they ever do anything. Untapped potential, absolute massive in Scotland.
But see, the thing with that, Matt, sorry to interrupt you, Kaiser.
No, it's better,
mate. That really grinds my gears. That. See, when they all come out for a trophy presentation and there's 100,000 and they can't fill a 19,000 seater stadium, you know, so where are they the majority of the time? Maybe if they actually turned up and watched their team financially, they might be able to buy better players, which then produces a better team. But no, they go and moan about the whole financial climate and they're up against it and all the rest of it. Well, you know, either back your team or don't, but don't just come out and glory hunt, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So many fair weather fans as well who turn up for the good days but are not in it for the long hard days. I grew up here in Ibrox in the shadow of Mordor all through the 90s, through the EBT years. I was here for the hard, tough times. So I revel in walking around this area on my Celtic top. Every single day I've got a different Celtic top on. Viacenza won the day because the colours. Walking past the front Ibrox, I was looking for Alex Ferguson there. You know, I was going to give him a wee wave for the window. I thought he hated the place after what they'd done to his wife, you know, telling her she shouldn't have been near the stadium and that because she was Catholic. But there he is there, in there cuddling the claret jug and getting on the old 10-speed racer. He was in there doing laps, I think, doing laps of the stadium. I had my eyes out for the cars and that, but just that show of Louis Walsh that was there. I'm determined I'm going to climb up on that and sit on the shoulders of that, lads, and give you a wave. I'll get us a picture. I need a full-leaf Clover banner, some flags, and my son's loving it as well. He's his full support.
He was doing his cycling proficiency test, I heard. That's what he was doing. He was cycling around Ibrox. Aye, well done, lads. Absolutely well done. So, next, there was another statement from the SPFL today, and it has caused a bit of a ruckus, I would say, amongst the Celtic support. So, the SPFL have reportedly issued fresh disciplinary charges against Celtic following a series of fan-related incidents towards the conclusion of the 24-25 season. League authorities confirmed that 3 clubs, Celtic, Aberdeen and Partick Thistle, you might notice that there's a club missing for that, are now facing notices of complaint in relation to supporter behaviour. The case centres around breaches of conduct regulations, with pyrotechnics once again coming under particular scrutiny. The move marks another step in the league's clampdown on disorder inside Scottish football grounds. Inside some Scottish football grounds, I would say. This latest action arrives on the back of new measures agreed at the Scottish FA's annual meeting this week, where clubs signed off on extending the SFA's disciplinary remit. The governing body's updated powers now mirror those already in place, with the SPFL including financial sanctions, limitations on ticket sales, and even expulsion from the Scottish Cup for the most serious breaches. Despite the SPFL's tough stance on flares and crowd behaviour, there remains a notable omission in their current complaints. The organisation has made no reference to the dangerous scenes at Ibrox during the recent Glasgow derby, where Celtic goalkeeper Sinisalo revealed he had around 40 objects, ladies and gentlemen, 40 objects, including a glass bottle launched towards him from the Rangers support. The SPFL statement read, during the 24-25 season, the SPFL took disciplinary action against a number of clubs, and notices of complaints have now been raised against 3 clubs in respect of incidents which occurred at the end of the season: Partick Thistle, Aberdeen and Celtic. It added that while clubs are being held accountable, wider discussions continue over the use of football banning orders in Scotland. The league confirmed it is working alongside Police Scotland and the Scottish Government to increase the scope of these orders aimed at removing persistent offenders from stadiums. And finally, the charges arrive several weeks after the end of the Premiership season, with Partick Thistle only recently completing the playoff campaign. The timing reflects an ongoing determination by league officials to root out disruptive behaviour, though many Celtic supporters will no doubt question the silence over what unfolded in Govan. Patrick, what are you making of that nonsense?
Honestly, Scott, it's bordering on absolute scandal. Absolutely scandalous. It's a joke. They're just the same people that, I look at the TV companies, I look at radio presenters, look at radio stations. These people can't hear 40,000 Rangers fans singing about being up to their knees in Fenian blood, but they can see somebody throwing a lighter onto the pitch or whatever. It's just absolutely farcical. And again, it just highlights, it highlights who's actually looking at these things and who's actually running the game. It's certainly not anybody connected to Celtic, that's for sure. The recent incidents at Ibrox, and that was only one incident. There's been numerous incidents at that stadium over the last couple of years, and to the best of my knowledge, there's never been any football sanction against Rangers Football Club. There's a couple of guys have appeared in court charged with this and charged with that, but there's been no major sanctions, issued to Rangers, and it's happened at that stadium against other teams as well, not just Celtic either. So it's just absolute farcical. That's what it is. Like these things are noted in referees' reports and referees' observers' reports and things. These things are all noted in the match report from the officials. So where does that match report go? Where does that go? It obviously doesn't go in front of whatever committee is looking at these offences here. I'm looking at Celtic were guilty of pyro at Hampden earlier on this season, but so were Rangers. Rangers were guilty of it as well. So it's just, as I say, it's just scandalous. And to be fair, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Celtic need to grow a set here. They absolutely need to grow a set. And they need to start and speak out. Because it is now becoming farcical. We have a fantastic reputation, and rightly so, as Celtic supporters. As Andy said about the Scotland fans, we travel all over Europe. We travel wherever we go with the Celtic to follow the club. We the biggest majority of us try to stay out of trouble, avoid getting involved in any of that shit. You know what I mean? And that's a major slur, against the Celtic support there for me this evening. And Celtic as a club need to be taking this to task. Like, people forget, the SPFL is made up of the clubs. It's actually made up of the Scottish clubs. So every club has a voice there. So Celtic are bound to have been aware of this. They sit in these meetings. So Celtic were aware that this was coming down the line. These things are discussed. Is there nobody in there? Is there nobody in there in that environment there that's fighting our corner? It's because there certainly doesn't seem as though there is. We've had players assaulted. We've had staff assaulted. We've had numerous objects thrown onto the pitch, broken glass in the dugout, broken glass in the penalty area. We've had players verbally assaulted outside the stadium. When you think of the fans being kettled outside the stadium as well, we've been treated abjectly. You know what I mean? And I think the time has come, long past the time. Celtic need to grow a set and stand up for us here, and just say enough's enough. We're not going to be singled out anymore. I'm not sure what Aberdeen have done. I'm not sure what Partick Thistle have done, but I'm pretty sure to single out just 3 clubs in the whole of Scotland is just absolutely ridiculous. I've watched many games this season involving Hearts, involving Hibs, involving Dundee United, involving Kilmarnock. And you've seen things being thrown on the pitch, or you've seen somebody running on the pitch. It's just absolutely ridiculous to single out those 3 clubs. So for me, we bring a lot of this on ourselves by failing to stand up for ourselves. You know, we need to, as I say, we need to grow a set and start challenging these things. And somebody needs to ask the question as to why. You know, what these incidents, as I say, will be well documented. They've been documented in the press, and they'll be documented in referees' match reports and delegates' reports and things. So, what's the point in having these reports if nobody is going to, pay any heed to what's happening there or what's going on in that report? So, for me, Scotty, it's just bad news all around. But for me, it's a massive wake-up call for the club. Definitely time they stood up and spoke up for the Celtic supporters, because we have a reputation which we've earned over many, many years, and that reputation has been called into question, and that's shameful.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant, mate. Well said. A load of comments there for you as well, Paddy. Brilliant, mate. Absolutely brilliant. Andy, are you with Paddy in this one? Did the club need to finally grow a set now and come out and say something about this? It's just getting beyond a joke now, isn't it?
I've been saying it for so long, Scotty, that the club aren't doing enough. The club aren't standing up for themselves and the fans and the players and staff. You know, the Aberdeen thing, one of their fans actually ripped a seat off and threw it to hit a Dundee United player and scalped his own player, if you remember. But that's the whole situation with just talking about Snake Mountain in particular, where the missiles getting thrown in the park. We're and it's not just there. You're talking about Tynecastle as well. Early years, you know, guys coming on attacking their manager. You're getting fans running on the park at Snake Mountain attacking Scott Brown, and you know things like this. The history that's involved with these, and then you're talking about the objects, the amount of objects that have getting thrown on that park. And I've said it before. The whole net system run the away fans. This has got to be put around the whole stadium to protect the players, because they've put that up to protect our fans. The players and the staff don't get any protection. And by the way, where all that stuff came from, they know where it's came from. It's that particular area with the onion bears in it. So put a net up right across that, and you try to tell me that that's not getting any surveillance on it. Just about every camera in the stadium's going to be pointing to that position, but all of a sudden, you don't see anything. You don't see MD throwing anything. Nobody's taken to task for it. The club isn't punished for it. And then you're talking about the banner. No, that Souness banner bothered me personally, it didn't. But the club came out and condemned it, and you never heard anything about that, you know, for the SFA. And apparently, you know, they hate the SFA. The SFA is against them, but that club's no mentioned in anything, you know. So that's what you're up against. But listen, this is Celtic's got to deal with us better. And they say that Peter Loyal runs the SFA. It certainly doesn't look as if that's the case, does it? Very, very strange decision makings. And just talking about the match report, these match reports must be getting sent to the lodge to get marked off what you can mention and what you can't mention. That's the only thing I can think of. That's where they're disappearing to. It's just an absolute joke. And this isn't just the last few months, no, just the last couple of years. This is decades upon decades of stuff like this going on, and nothing's ever done about it. So it's up to Celtic to grow a set of boys and actually challenge them, because the way things are going, the SFA are not fit for purpose. Absolutely no. You can shove your officials in there for that as well. They're simply not good enough to officiate our games.
Yeah, bang on, mate, as well.
Sorry, before we move on, see if any missiles get thrown on the park next time we play at their ground. Celtic need to walk right off the park and just refuse to get back out. Yeah. That's the stance that's got to be made.
Yeah, the silence from the board, Kaiser, is deafening about this. I'm sure there will be meetings about this statement that's came out, that nothing has been mentioned about what happened at Ibrox. Scandalous, really, mate.
Shows the culture of the SFA, their ingrained unconscious bias against Celtic and other sides here. If you're going to do something, you've got to be consistent and mention everyone that's doing wrong. As you see there, if you're a fan at the Bigot Dome, it seems to be you can act with impunity. Matt O'Reilly scored a penalty and got a half bottle of Buckfast thrown at him. Engels got hit with a £2 coin. The banner was vile. Take aim at the rebel scum. And okay, we laugh at them for their stupidity and the way they act. They are thoroughly trapped in the 1980s. What a toxic support. But the fact that it seems to be condoned while other clubs are targeted. Now, I'm in no shortage, right? I love the Pyro Legends. I absolutely love it. I was at Ange Postecoglou's last game in the cup final, and I was in the prawn sandwich section, and I ignited a pyro, and they had pictures of me in the paper and all that.
Seen the pictures, aye.
Get it in about it. You know what I mean? A bit of colour, a bit of attitude at the game. I understand the dangers of it, and they want it removed for the game. People have lung conditions, blah, 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 yakety smackety. I understand all that part. I love the flavour, I love the atmosphere, but we need to know where to draw the line. I've seen people who have been arrested out of Ibrox and ejected from the stadium giving community service, lads. 36 hours community service, painting the Loudon, painting the outside of the Loudon, you know what I mean? It's a system where they get a handshake for behaviour like that.
Aye, but that was painting there where it says world's most successful club. That's what they're doing.
You had to paint all the stars, Andy. And I remember also another incident where the Onion Bears, absolute group of preschoolers, right, sneaking weapons into Ibrox, baseball bats and swords they had hidden in the toilets above the tiled ceilings. See, they had tiles, they had weapons in a football ground. I mean, what is going through these people's minds? They think, I will just start a rumble with the Celtic fans in the corner and produce baseball bats and swords. You know, what is going on with these people? Such a backward support, trapped in the 1980s. And of course, if they're going to be let away with it, they're going to continue to do it. They're just going to continue to do it. What sort of message is this sending to Celtic fans then? You know what today, lads? Don't take pyro to the game. Take a half bottle of Buckfast, a vape the size of a player piano, and make sure you belt it right off the first Huns heat you see. Scud them right in the napper with it, and we'll lift you up and we'll pass you from the front to the back of the stadium like a hero. Of course not. We're not degenerates like they people. It utterly riles me, but that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to rile Celtic fans in the off-season where nothing can be said and done. And the guys are absolutely spot on. The board needs to grow an absolute pair. We need to go out and employ a lawyer who's just sitting in an office rubbing his hands like a fly on shite anytime these comments come out. Just rub your hands and just take the SFA right to task. It's diminishing our club and failing to diminish their club. Maybe because their club starts with a Cairn club. It's a different kind of view that they get and a different kind of behaviour that's allowed to participate. And the guys are 110% correct. They are clearly sending these down to the lodge to get graded. These referees reports and stuff, they're getting edited. It must be like 85% Tipex. It must be like a sheet of Artex. Come on, man. We need something done here. The board needs to take this to task. We need someone to go and confront the SFA about this. And it can't just be with the guys that, right, fair enough, we'll correct our behaviour. We'll try to correct our fans' behaviour. The kettling of fans and stuff by the police was utterly atrocious. The way the club says they didn't know anything about it as well. When they did know about it, they knew exactly what was going on. They allowed it to happen. That is utterly, we need people who view us as a Celtic support we are. It's woven into our DNA. Celtic fans from birth, most of us. It's just completely ingrained in you. I hope we get representation and I hope somebody takes them to task. Possibly with the board, they'll do their usual and they'll just sit there in silence. That's what they love to do. They love to treat us as customers and sit there in silence. They need to go in and take this to task. And it can't be just with but look at them and look what they're getting away with. We need to do a bit better. That's take an take a rocket-propelled grenade to the next game. You know what I mean? A Sam.
You're starting now, Kaiser.
Kaiser knows how to build them. A pipe and some potatoes and a can of gas. Boom, I'll do Dessers like me with one of them. No bother. I'll take the 6 months.
I'd control it, mate, and stick it in the tap bag, so you would if that's what you've done. Great points, ladies and gentlemen. Great points. Brilliant for the lads again. Aye, if you don't deal with this behaviour, you're only going to encourage it, and it's just going to continue. So let's see what Celtic do. So that's all we have for you this evening. But we've got one last thing to do.
Last man standing.
So, this evening, ladies and gentlemen, it is our number 6 jersey that will be getting filled. We started off our 4-Leaf Clover podcast starting 11. We've got 5 members already. We have Arthur Boric in goals. We have Danny McGrain at right back. Kieran Tierney left back. Roy Aiken got our number 4 jersey. And Virgil van Dijk got our number 5 jersey on the last podcast. We're doing a 4-2-3-1 formation, the formation that Celtic play just now, with the 2 wingers, the number 10, the 2 sitting midfielders, so on and so forth. So it's a number 6 jersey. There's no Lisbon Lions in this team. It's players that we've all seen play. So unfortunately, there will be no Lions in this team. But it's our number 6 position that will be getting filled tonight. And the first 2 I have for you this evening, Paddy. Good luck with this tonight, by the way, guys. This is an absolute belter again. First up, Paddy, is Murdo McLeod or Peter the Pointer.
Oh. Hard one, Scotty, too. They all are at this, especially at this stage. I think the midfield is going to be very, very difficult right across the whole midfield. But listen, for me, this is an easy one. Listen, Murdo McLeod was a hero of mine, an absolute legend for me. Growing up as a young lad, you know, this wee guy coming in from Dumbarton, £100,000, whatever it was they paid for him. You know, and to see him in there, such a combative player, just the heart of a lion, just such an inspiration to the team. You know, and you're just thinking, you know, this guy's come from Dumbarton. You know, like his ability to hit the ball from distance, long shots, free kicks. You know, just the crowd begging him to shoot. Peter Grant, you know, very, very inspirational character too. You know, loved him. Bleeds green. You know, just the guy would just die for Celtic when he was a player. You know, and when I'm just thinking of the teams that both of those guys played in, you know, we will probably talk about some of these guys tonight. They'll be in the lineup coming after this. But for me, it's a fairly simple one because I loved Murdo as a player. I was fortunate enough; I've met him on a few occasions at, you know, a few different places, and I've spoken to him outside Celtic Park very recently there.
Yeah,
and he's just the wee gentleman that he always was. Peter Grant, similar. Caleb and me met Peter Grant on the way into Hamlin for the cup final, and he stopped and chatted to us. And you know, 2 really good Celtic men. But I'm going to go with Murdo McLeod on this one for you, Scott.
Okay, pal. Andy, are you with Paddy and going with Murdo, or are you going with Peter the Pointer? Sorry.
I'm actually going to a night with Peter Grant and Brian McClare. So I better watch what I'm saying in a couple of weeks' time. I'm going to go with Murdo on this. Look, I think Granty gets a bit of stick for his ability and stuff like that. He was a better player than what he was made out to be, right? Peter the Pointer and all that kind of stuff. That's all he done was pointing. He done more than that.
Yeah.
You look at that cup final 95 and you know, the guy was just playing on his last legs, you know, and just didn't stop. Just pretty inspirational. A fan that actually got the opportunity to pull on that jersey, and he fully admits that. And he fully admits that, you know, he was there to pass the ball into, you know, McStay and guys with real ability. He doesn't hide for that. He's an honest player. But I think Murdo was class. He went to go and play for Bayern Munich. You know what I mean? That's the kind of player he was, which was pretty unusual at that time for that kind of thing to happen. I know you can look at Lambert that left Scotland and went to play for Dortmund as well. But he went out there, loved it, had a great time out in Dortmund. But it was fantastic for Celtic. And I can always mind him. I think it was with Scotland though. He gets smashed right in the ball, right in the face with the ball, didn't he? A free kick.
The free kick, aye.
I always remember that. But you know, played in inspirational games for Celtic, especially against the Rotten mob that stick in my memory. So I'm going to go with Murdo on this for the jersey. Sorry, Granty, but Murdo gets it.
Okay, so Kaiser, Murdo McLeod has the jersey, mate, but I mean, we still want your opinion, mate, and obviously the opinion of the viewers as well. Who are you picking, pal, and why?
Loved Peter the Pointer as well. Just putting that out there. I thought he was one of those iconic Celtic players, and he does fantastically now. When I see him on Celtic TV, he always brings such eloquent points and seems to really know what he's talking about when he talks about the game. He's one of the shining lights on Celtic TV when it's working. But yeah, Murdo for me, absolutely run through walls, absolute tank, heart of a lion, heart of an absolute lion. Going to get harder and harder to distinguish and pick between all these iconic players here, especially growing up as a young guy and remembering these players. It starts to get really tough, and I know there's going to be worse to come. But right now, it's Murdo's spot for me.
Okay. So Murdo McLeod, as it stands, has the number 6 jersey. Patrick, in fact, let's mix it up a wee bit. Let's go around the table differently. So we'll start with you, Andy, this time. Murdo McLeod is up against Rio Hatate.
I hate you, man. It's a tough year. Obviously, you're going back a fair bit with Murdo. So there's a lot of people out there that probably when I've seen Murdo play. But for me, Hatate's a very gifted player. Really, really gifted when he's on his game, and in particular before his injury, he did a really good kind of period. He's putting in some really good performances. But again, Hatate for me is too hot and cold. For me, he's not consistent enough. And I think Murdo was always consistent. You always got that off of Murdo. And it's probably going to be controversial, especially maybe the younger viewers will probably not get what I'm talking about. But for me, it's Murdo. And I do like Hatate. I think he's very gifted, but he's just not consistent enough for me. He may go. He's still relatively young, you know. So he's obviously got a lot of his career ahead of him. But at this point, it's Murdo that keeps that jersey.
Okay, are you with Andy Kaiser, or are you going with the man from Japan?
Well, I'm going with the man from Japan for this one. I think there's no substitute for talent and ability, and Hatate has that. It's something that we look at games when he was out with that injury there, and we were looking at that creative spark that was gone. And Murdo is an absolute warrior of a player. But you just can't fault that quality. I'm going to go with the younger generation, and I'm going to go with the Rio Hatate in modern football. I think Hatate is a special player. Some of the things he's done, still dining out in that pass for the Champions League a few years ago, obviously, when Froan comes in and he whips the ball across. Just that kind of ability, the ability to change a game. But for me, I'm going to go Rio Hatate, make it a bit difficult on Paddy up there. keep it balanced.
Okay. So, Paddy, you have the deciding decision, my man. Who's it going to be and why?
Oh, two wonderful players, without a shadow of a doubt, Scott. Real big part of what we've done, basically since Ange came in, massive part of our success. And the one thing that Rio lacked was exactly what Murdo McLeod had, and that was the heart of a lion. If Rio Hatate had the bravery and the heart that Murdo McLeod had, he wouldn't even be playing for Celtic. He'd be in Serie A or La Liga. I think that's what lets Rio down sometimes. How many times have we seen him over the last couple of years and we thought, he just didn't fancy it today. You could never have said that about Murdo McLeod. Not if you were playing East Fife on a Tuesday night in the League Cup, or he was playing for Scotland against Brazil in the World Cup. You could never ever have labelled that at Murdo McLeod. You just see the 10 men won the league game. We were down, we were up, we were down again. But Murdo McLeod was one of the players, along with Big Roy Aiken, that dragged us up that night and just refused to be beaten. It wasn't an option. And who better to fire in the goal that sealed the deal than Murdo? People were screaming at him to kick it into the stands and kick it here and kick it there. What does he do? He kicks into the top corner from about 25 yards, the best place you can put it. Mm-hmm. So for me, listen, Rio is love him to bits, wonderful player, but it's just his lack of heart for me, Murdo McLeod, if you're going into the trenches against Rangers on Saturday afternoon at Hampden in a League Cup semi-final or whatever, I'd want Murdo McLeod sitting in front of the back four. So Murdo for me.
Okay. So Murdo McLeod keeps the number 6 jersey for now. He's on a Chris Morris and he's on a Chris Morris run here, isn't he, so to speak. So he's up now. Kaiser, Murdo McLeod is up against Stilian Petrov.
Yep. For me, right, Stan the man. Love Stilian Petrov. First season was a bit ropey for Petrov, but he certainly came into his own. Absolute cavalier, box-to-box midfielder. One of the first days like that I've seen at Celtic. Absolutely enjoyed watching Stan the man. And some of the OGs in chat there picking on Kaiser because he's not of a certain vintage, When my winter curlies came in, boys, maybe I'll look back in fond memories, But definitely, like, for me, I'm going to go, like, with Stan the man. Make it hard on the lads. Let's see what happens here.
Okay. So, Patrick, it's down to you now, sir. Is it Murdo McLeod or is it Stan Petrov? Are you sticking with Murdo?
I'll keep you waiting. Stan Petrov, a massive part of Martin O'Neill's era. Brilliant player. Came in, didn't have a word of English. When he gave numerous newspaper articles about, the language barrier at the start. He suffered under John Barnes too at the very start. I remember John Barnes had him out at left back. Crazy. Guy didn't speak a word of English and he had him stuck out at left back. Really, really tough. But once he got his feet under him and he got settled in Glasgow, we saw the best of him. He was a fantastic player, fantastic servant, and, just such a big part of that team. And, he when you talk about Mjällby and Valharan and Petrov and Moravcik, those guys, the names just roll off your lips, don't they? But fantastic player. But listen, I just can't. I can't see past Murdo on this one either. I just can't. The guy's just an absolute legend for me. As I say, Stan Petrov again, all those qualities, but Murdo just had everything, absolutely everything that you'd wanted in a player. And if he. Sometimes you could even say, like, Stan Petrov likes to goal from outside the box as well. And sometimes that can separate an individual. You just had that wee bit of style, that wee bit of panache. But for me, again, a warrior in the trenches. The chips are down. Who do you want on your side there? So for me, I'm going to stick with Murdo on this one.
Andy, you have the deciding vote. This is a very, very tough one, actually. Murdo McLeod or Stilian Petrov? Who are you picking and why, sir?
I'm gonna give you an instant as soon as I seen Stan's picture coming up, and it's nothing against him, but I just thought right away Murdo, that I was going to stick with Murdo. Petrov was a very, very gifted player. Scored some brilliant goals as well. A cracking player actually, and I know he didn't have a great start. I think he was at left back or something at one time, as and I think he had a kind of difficult time at the start, and as we know, he had difficult times later on in his career. It's always good to see him at Celtic Park. You see him now and again on the commentary team and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think as a player, great player for Celtic. Obviously, had that European run playing in Seville, and we'll always remember him for that, and always good memories of Stan. But I'm with Paddy. I think, Murdo, that big barrel-chested, just the whole persona, he's all kind of image, total commitment, just a rhino, I'm going to stick with Murdo on this one. Sorry, Kaiser.
Okay. So,
No
Murdo
problem.
McLeod has the jersey. Patrick, we are back to you again, sir. And Murdo McLeod is now up against Victor Wanyama.
That's hard. That is hard. You know what? Two similar players in physique and Big Victor was a unit, absolute unit. You think of him, Barcelona game, that European run, even out in the big Samaras scored out in Russia, was out in Moscow, was it big Samaras headed the winner late on. Big Victor was immense that day too. I'm going to go on this one, just like say, just based on, I just don't think he stayed around long enough. I don't think he could have gave us a lot more. And I think when you see him there recently signing for Dunfermline, I think he realised himself that he made a bit of an arse of it, to be honest, leaving another one of these players. How many of these players have we said, if they had just given Celtic another 2 years or another year, it would have made such a difference for them, but they didn't. They went chasing the money, they went chasing the EPL, whatever, and he falls into that category. But, as I say, if we're lacking a player at the minute, we're lacking a Wanyama type player now because of the modern game. Obviously, we are lacking but there's absolutely no comparison for me between Murdo McLeod and Victor Wanyama. I mean, I grew up with that team: Tommy Burns, Murdo McLeod, Roy Aiken, Danny McGrain, Peter Grant. Those guys were just immense. That was one of my favourite teams, that Celtic team of the late 70s and 80s. So for me, it's Murdo McLeod again.
Okay. So, Andy, are you still sticking with Murdo? He's on some run, or are you going for Victor Wanyama?
Big Victor was an absolute unit. A man mountain. Gifted player as well, technically. And really committed when he was here. It's a longevity thing for me. We simply didn't see enough of him, and I think he left far too soon. So for me, Murdo still keeps the jersey for here, and I totally get it. I think it's maybe a generational thing, You think back, obviously that Barcelona game and stuff like that, just iconic times. But as I said, it's more a longevity thing. I don't think we've seen enough of Wanyama to warrant him taking the jersey off of Murdo McLeod. So it's Murdo for me.
Okay, so Kaiser, Murdo is on some run. He keeps the jersey, but we still respect and want your opinion, sir. So who are you picking and why?
I'm definitely picking Wanyama. I can't backtrack now. It's everybody except Murdo. Anybody get up there. All the guys out there in chat, I'll just help you here, boys, right? See, if you're under the age of 25, you're a Celtic youth. If you're between 25 and 50, you're a Celtic da. If you're over 50, you're a Celtic pappy. Stop getting it confused. Don't get it twisted, boys. Guys, I turned 43 the other day, so I'm not exactly a Celtic pup myself. I see some of these players, and of course, baptised and raised in Celtic. For me, I love Big Wanyama. Some of the best memories I've ever had at Paradise was the Barcelona game and Big Wanyama popping up and scoring. For that, it just cements him for me. Just cements him over Murdo McLeod. So I understand Murdo retains his spot because the old boys here, the old boys are staying united. But fair enough. Yeah, I would take Wanyama in a heartbeat. Exactly what we're lacking modern football right here, right now. Exactly what we're lacking in the squad.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with that. We actually are lacking that type of player. We've said it many times in this podcast, but I just don't think he takes the jersey off of Murdo.
Okay, that's fair enough. So the lads have voted 2-1, and Murdo McLeod keeps the number 6 jersey. Will he go all the way? He has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more people to keep the jersey off, Patrick. In fact, it's back to Andy now. So Andy, he's now up against Joe Ledley.
I get it. Ledley was a fantastic player. A player that really should have stayed longer with us, but he was kind of shipped out, wasn't he? He was out of favour. He didn't want to go. That's for sure. Cracking player. Again, kind of probably. I think he definitely fell out of favour. I think he'd much more to give Celtic in the time he was here. It was just unfortunate he left when he did. But he was one of my favourite players when he was at Celtic. He totally got Celtic as well. He loved it here. He loved playing football here for Celtic. I'm still sticking with Myrtle. I'm still going to stick with Myrtle here. Again, to many people it might be controversial, but it's just the way I feel about it. I still think that Myrtle keeps this jersey.
No, that's absolutely fine, mate. So, Kaiser, Joe Ledley or Murdo McLeod, sir, and why?
Definitely for me, Joe Ledley. Just a absolute cavalier of a player. Just got Celtic straight away as soon as he arrived. I see the guys like shaking heads and that. I know the chat will be doing the same. Maybe it is a generational thing. Not as invested in Murdo. Real memories of Murdo was when he was assisting Wim Janssen and Stop to 10. For that reason and Murdo's longevity, I completely understand it. But Joe Ledley was just absolutely fantastic, and I'm just going to go. I'm going to go that way. I can't backtrack now. You know what I mean? I just can't. I'm sorry.
No, that's fair enough. And you've got to stick with your guns. You can't backtrack. So that's fair enough. So I totally understand that. But it gives Paddy, who I think I know who he's going to pick. But Paddy, you have the decision to make, sir. Murdo McLeod or Joe Ledley, and why?
So I don't want Kaiser to think we're ganging up on him for any reason. It's all about opinions, guys. That's what it's about. It's just about honest opinions, and it's not picking on anybody in particular. But for me, this is an easy one. It's a no-brainer. Love Joe Ledley. He gave us something that we hadn't had in a long, long time. He was a very athletic midfield player, a far better player when I saw him playing than we thought we were getting. I couldn't believe it when I saw we were linked with this guy, and I'm like, who's this guy? But he was one of these players who really did a turn and put in a shift for us whenever he was there. And again, another one of these guys who came out of nowhere and didn't understand Celtic, but he really got us, and he built up a very strong affinity with the supporters and stuff. But Joe Ledley had his limitations as a player. And again, as I say, it's different eras, different games, Scott. When Joe Ledley had a specific role in that team, particularly under Neil Lennon. But for me, it's a no-brainer. There's no comparison. Murdo McLeod all day long.
Wow. Murdo McLeod has kept the jersey from the beginning. And he is a lovely guy. I've been in his company a couple of times as well, and he's really, really lovely guy. So now, who are we up to now? We're back to Paddy, is it?
Must be me again, aye.
Is it Paddy? Okay, so Paddy, Murdo McLeod is now up against somebody we had a wee conversation about earlier on. Murdo McLeod is up against Matt O'Reilly.
It was at this moment that he knew he fucked up.
Perfect timing, Kaiser. Perfect.
Don't look like a kipper. Oh dear. Oh, do you know what, guys? Like, where do you go with that? Where do you absolutely go with that? Matt O'Reilly, unbelievable talent. Come in from Fulham, wondering who this guy is. I think he made his debut maybe against Hearts in the middle of the week, and we were raving about him from day one. How did nobody in England see this guy? Fantastic player, massive part of what Ange did, turning the whole thing around, getting us back on winning trophies again, dominating Scottish football, getting into the Champions League and excelling when he's in there. Fantastic talent. And we talked earlier on about it. Would we bring him back? I'd bring him back in a heartbeat. Football and ability, probably a better player than Murdo, maybe technically, but I'm going to stick with Murdo McLeod, Scott. I have to stick with my man. Murdo was such an inspiration. Matt O'Reilly was the player. I wanted Matt O'Reilly to be the inspiration that Murdo McLeod was, if that makes sense. I was crying out for him to take that responsibility and be that player that I think he would have got there if he had stayed in all year. But that's what you were sort of crying out. You were crying. You've got the ability, you've got the physique, you've got the talent. Take that responsibility and run with it and be that player for us that Murdo McLeod was. Murdo was just an absolute all-rounder. And as I say, I think if Matt O'Reilly had stayed another year, maybe another year and a half, and developed into that player and been the leader and been the true inspiration that Murdo was. Murdo was an inspiration in every game. Matt O'Reilly was an inspiration now and again. He let his football do the talking for him. So I'm going to stick with Murdo, Scott, even though it's maybe not be popular. People maybe didn't see Murdo McLeod and they've seen Matt O'Reilly in the very recent times. But I'm going to stick with Murdo McLeod.
Okay, Andy, very tough one this, and they're going to get tougher, as you know. But Matt O'Reilly, does he get the shout, or is Murdo? I think it's 7 in a row he's been on now. So is Matt O'Reilly getting the jersey, or is Murdo McLeod keeping it?
I've already said my admiration for Matt O'Reilly, and I was always, and I can remember Anne saying, "Don't get too attached to these players; they're not going to be about for long." It's just the nature of the game now. O'Reilly was and still is an absolute class player. I think potentially world class player with his ability. I really, really liked him. I would love to see him back at Celtic Park. Again, it's the longevity thing. He didn't spend enough time at Celtic, and this is actually really a hard decision for me, because I do like Matt O'Reilly. I think he's the potential to be an absolute Celtic great if he just stayed a wee bit longer. Admired by the fans and totally get that, and the women for obvious reasons. But I'm going to stick. I'm with Paddy. I'm going to stick with Murdo on this. Unfortunately for Matt, and it's a really hard one for me. But I'm going to stick with the Rhino.
Okay. So Kaiser, 7 in a row. He's managed to bat off every day. Nobody's been on a run like this yet on the podcast. Murdo McLeod keeps the jersey, but like I said, sir, we would like to hear your opinion anyway. Is it Murdo McLeod or Matt O'Reilly?
Of course, it's about diverse opinions, isn't it? No one wants to sit and watch an echo chamber. There's over here feeling like, okay, man.
Bullshit. In the galaxy of this sucks camel dick.
For me, right, Matt O'Reilly, absolute fantastic player, and I've Murdo at the squad about 6 players ago. So I'm definitely not getting back on that, right, lads? Definitely not. Matt O'Reilly for me all the way. Absolute cavalier of a player. So handsome as well. My mum loves him. My sister loves him. My daughter wants his phone number if he's watching. His mum, I think his mum frequents the show. He comes in and watches. So, Matt O'Reilly for me all the way. Murdo, fantastic player, guys. Right, I understand where he's coming from. And you can just hold that longevity up against any player and go, oh, the longevity. But it's a modern game. That is the nature of the modern beast, that players are here for 3-year life cycle, and they need to try and fit in as much as they can in those 3 years. Always leave them one more. Would love more of Matt O'Reilly. Would love him to be back at Celtic, as we discussed earlier on in the show. But Matt O'Reilly for me, and Michelle. If Michelle was on, she'd be choosing O'Reilly as well.
100%. 100%. She'd probably be off the pod by now, waiting his DMs. That's what she'd be doing. So right, Murdo McLeod keeps the number 6 jersey. I noticed somebody mentioned earlier, is this old school numbers? It is. So we're going 1 to 11. So the number 6 jersey is our first central midfielder. And as it stands, the Rhino, Murdo McLeod, has the jersey. I think we're back to Andy now, I believe. Is that right? Aye, we're back to Andy.
I remember, mate. But I go for it.
There's 3 central midfielders left for Murdo McLeod to see off. And the first one, Andy, that he is up against is the passing, the movement, the tempo. John Collins.
Love Murdo. He's obviously get very far, but there's this no contest when it comes to Collins. An absolute, to me, he was a world class player. Was he the first player with the Predator boots? Collins.
I believe so. Yeah. Well, no. Aye, he was. I think he was, mate. Aye, I think you're right.
Aye, obviously, for Hibs, went on to Monaco, Fulham, Everton. So he had a career after Celtic. But and again, for Collins, at the club, it wasn't the most successful time when it comes to winning trophies and stuff like that, but an absolute standout when you've got Collins there and McStay, and what a midfield we had. And I always remember that goal at Snake Mountain when he scored when no fans were there. Well, allegedly there was no fans, but you could hear a few people shout out when he scored that free kick. Not just that, but overall with Collins, just I know people go on about him, he loves his cell, and he's a bit of an knob end, but as a player, I think it's an easy decision to make on this one. I'm going to go with John Collins.
Okay, so it's bad news for Patrick, because I think we know who Kaiser is going to pick here. Is it John Collins, or is it... Have you got to change your mind? Do a Jerry and go back to Murdo McLeod.
I'm going to go for John Collins. I actually made this calendar in the background here. I actually made this for Paul John Dykes. He mentioned John Collins so much. I put John Collins' head on this beach model here. You can't see the full thing. Paddy, if you bend down and just assume the body, take over. But, yeah, John Collins for me all the way. Always remember the banana free kick. The first player at Predator boots, and a really iconic player at Celtic. So I'm John Collins. So yeah, eventually we managed to shift Murdo out of the squad. Yeah. Hate it, Murdo.
Poor Murdo. Paddy, Murdo McLeod or John Collins? John Collins now has the jersey, but obviously we would still love to hear your opinion, sir.
Listen, as I say, Scott, it's about opinions, and I can't disagree with the guys. I'm still picking Murdo, but I can't disagree with their choice. I wouldn't like to have been in the box seat with that one. That would have been a tough one, but I would have been sticking with Murdo because of the inspiration that he was. John Collins was a fantastic player, no two ways about that. But he played in a very poor Celtic team, which wasn't his fault either. But again, I just think there was times where, maybe he wasn't on it, or he just did. I just felt with times he didn't give us everything in every game, where Murdo did. As I say, Murdo was just an absolute legend. He played green and white for me, and so I would have been going for Murdo McLeod. But I can absolutely 100% understand why the guys have picked John Collins. Fantastic player, wonderful technique, 2-footed player. Score of some big goals for us, but unfortunately for him, his era at Celtic Park wasn't the best. It was, as a matter of fact, it was very, very poor. When he was playing in a team with some cracking players, we should have done a lot better for the players that we had. But I just say Murdo was just Murdo was an inspiration from the day he signed until the day he stopped playing. So for me it would have been Murdo, but I absolutely respect the guy's choice.
Okay. Yeah, fair dues. And we will give him one last special mention because he managed to bat off 6 other players. So he was on for 7 in a row. Murdo McLeod, you done well, sir. But John Collins now has the jersey.
And incidentally, Scotty, just if you put that picture up with Murdo again, that hairdo is reminiscent of somebody in the 80s just got to pick their weight up for school in it, like some woman. It's definitely a woman's tinge to it. That.
It certainly is. So there's 2 more central midfielders left, and we're round to you now, Kaiser. John Collins is now up against Neil Lennon.
Jeez. Wow. This one for me, right? This is a no-brainer. It's Neil Lennon all the way. I just can't see past Neil Lennon. His drive, his commitment, probably everything the boys were talking about when they were talking about Murdo. That's what I see in Neil Lennon. The ability of him when he came into Celtic as well. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. I've got a bit of action going on behind this, so I'm going to stick these with my opinion and mute it for 2 seconds to the door gets answered. I wonder who it is.
No bother, mate. So, Patrick, is it Neil Lennon for you, or is it John Collins?
Listen, I have to get back on that boat again in another few weeks' time, so I need to be very careful how I tread here. But no, it's a no-brainer for me, Scott. Neil Lennon all day long, and it's nothing to do with the ability or, John Collins just a different type of player. But again, we talked about Big Victor earlier on, Murdo McLeod. Neil Lennon. See if we had a 27-year-old Neil Lennon now, to sit in there alongside Callum McGregor and play in the middle of the field. That's exactly the kind of player we're lacking. You know, and when you think of what the guy's done for Celtic as a player, as a manager, you know, and the stuff that he had to go through in his personal life, you know, as well, he suffered some horrendous abuse and stuff, and he stuck with it. You know, it would have been very easy for Neil Lennon to just say, listen, I don't need this shit. I'm a millionaire. I'll head back down to England and put the feet up, you know, but he stuck with Celtic both as a player and a manager and saw the thing out, you know. So Neil Lennon for me it's a no-brainer for me. It's Neil Lennon all day long.
Okay, so Andy, Neil Lennon does have the jersey, but you had a lot of nice things to say about John Collins previously. Are you sticking with John Collins or are you going for our Lenny?
Two very, very different players. I've got to be honest, as a player, I wasn't the biggest fan of Lennon. I think it was maybe no giving him justice, I suppose, but I thought he was very basic as a player. But then that was his job, you know, that was his job. So, but obviously, you know, that what he done for the club, former captain, manager, on a couple of occasions, and everything else he's been through as well, but an absolute warrior, the fight, the spirit, and that picture at Snake Mountain with Mark O'Neill, you know, and just all the different things he's been through. An absolute solid player, totally committed to the club. So very different players. Collins, obviously, ability-wise, was a better player, but I think you get more with Lenny, so much more. And even though he's moved on for Celtic now, obviously he's a manager of Dunfermline, he still gets Celtic in his heart, and they always will have, you know. Had a very difficult time at Celtic in his second spell as manager. A difficult time for everybody at the club. It was just unfortunate that sometimes that stains your legacy a wee bit, and it really shouldn't. When you've got to look beyond that and see everything that revolves around about everything he's done at Celtic. For me, Lenny, this is actually quite an easy decision to make. It's Lenny. Lenny takes that jersey. Yep.
Okay. So Neil Lennon has the number 6 jersey, and we only have one more central midfielder to go. I think we're back to Paddy, is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, back to Paddy. So Neil Lennon, Patrick, is up against a man that he played in the centre of midfield with in Seville and in other places as well. Paul Lambert. Neil Lennon or Paul Lambert?
Tough one too, Scott. Very, very tough. Two captains, inspirational people. Probably Paul Lambert, we know, with his goals. Probably maybe make a lot of people might feel edge it because of his goals, scoring, stuff like that. But I'm going to stick with Neil Lennon. I'm going to stick with Lenny. He was just such an inspirational figure. You know, just a fantastic servant to the club. An absolute warrior. You know, I know Paul Lambert was very good as well, very inspirational, but, you know, Lenny was prepared to go in where it hurt. You know, Paul Lambert was a slightly different player. He wasn't expected to do it. He was more of a ball player, but Lenny was the guy that, you know, as I said, if you're going to Ibrox on Sunday and you're 2 points behind, Neil Lennon's the guy you want on your team there. But both fantastic servants, both fantastic players. You know, we think back to Paul Lambert's goal against Rangers at New Year. That's just a worldie in one of the most important games in the club's history. But Neil Lennon, just, you know, when you think of Neil Lennon in the year that we went to Seville, you know, just a fantastic servant, just a battler, warrior, just the guy that gets the ball back from the opposition to allow us to play. I know Andy said, you know, he was pretty basic in what he did, but he did the same for Northern Ireland. You know, he was fantastic at covering the ground and getting himself back goal side of the opposition. And the thing was, he won the ball back from the opposition and gave it to the players who could play. That was his job. It was very simple. Like, he covered every blade of grass. No, Neil Lennon for me, guys.
Okay. Andy, before you make your decision, mate, I've never seen such a split in the comments. It's literally like 50-50 here. So the viewers can't decide this one. It's very, very difficult. But Paddy has went with Neil Lennon. I was going to say Lennon Miller there. Neil Lennon, because he's got to go back on the boat, as he said, in a few weeks' time. So, I mean, who are you picking, sir, and why?
I totally get it. As a difficult one. Again, two very different kind of players, playing style. Lambert, more technically gifted. Definitely more technically gifted. Again, another player that went to Dortmund, took a chance to go out there. And ended up becoming a Champions League winner. And in fact, it was meant to join Celtic before that.
Yeah.
I can't mind what happened. It just didn't happen at that time. But he ended up he got into the team for the final. Ended up winning the Champions League with Dortmund. So a Champions League winner, and fair play to him. A guy that really kind of took control of his own career and kind of created his own kind of trajectory when it came to trophy winning and stuff like that. Great player, loved him at Celtic. Scored some really cracking goals as well. More athletic than Lennon, but I'm going to stick with Lenny. I'm going to stick with Paddy on this. It's actually a very hard decision to make, but for the reasons that I gave before, that's why I'm going to stick with Lennon, and that's it.
Okay, good. Great points, lads. Absolutely great points and opinions, and that's what it's all about. Kaiser, Neil Francis Lennon has got our number 6 jersey on the podcast, but who would you have picked anyway? Give us your thoughts.
Loved Lambert as a player, the quality he brought when he came in. I think Andy and Paddy, they coined it perfectly. The ability he brought, the international exposure, the fact that he went to Germany and played and was a success there as well, winning the Champions League, having a Champions League winner at the club. But for me, I just can't see past Neil Lennon. I still think of the second time he was offered the Celtic job and Peter Lawwell crawled out the drain in the shower like Pennywise the clown. He's like, just me, fat boy, you're coming back again. I can't see past Neil Lennon. He gave so much to the club, took such dog's abuse for it as well, and took it on the chin, and fantastic servant. Long ago was the time where I looked at what happened during the COVID season, and I was very angry with Neil Lennon. I was thinking he could have left a bit earlier, could have made that change. But I look at what was going on in the world and how people's relatives were boxed up and caged up and hidden away, and we had lots of players for the continent who maybe wanted away. There was a good reason that mob across the road had a lot of British-based players. They were all based here. They were very settled. They weren't as worried about relatives on the continent as some of our players were. So long gone is the time where I forgave Neil Lennon. I was very angry with him at the time of the COVID season, but that's long since faded away. Everything the guy goes through, even his kids can't go out without getting abuse. His wife, such a polarising figure, and the fact that mob absolutely despise him just makes him a cherished article for me. Love it. I'd have a statue of him in my driveway.
So Neil Francis Lennon, folks, gets the number 6 jersey on the Four Leaf Clover podcast. So what a team we've got shaping up now. Neil Lennon is going to sit in our central midfield position. That was
last man standing.
Scotty, I would have just loved to have got Jerry and Michelle's input on that one. That would have been a cracker there.
Yeah, I don't know if it would have went any different, to be fair. That's what I love about this game, is the opinions, and obviously when you've got a younger crowd on as well. I think what would have been good is if we had 4 on the panel tonight, because a few of them would have went to the viewers, and there was a lot of sort of 50-50 ones on there, so that would have been nice. Yeah. But absolutely brilliant. I love this comment here for Carter. All the crap Lenny had to put up with, you can't judge him that shirt. Yeah, I think that sort of sums it up perfectly. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is us this evening. We've managed to keep you occupied for nearly 2 hours. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us this evening from the Emerald Isle. Andy, thank you as well, sir. Absolutely brilliant contribution as ever. And Kaiser, thanks for stepping in for our Michelle and Jerry, who couldn't make the podcast this evening. It's great to see you as ever, sir. Lots of love for you in the comments as ever as well. We will be back with you on Wednesday night, so a few days off now for everybody. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy your Friday night. Thanks for all your input in the comments, and keep an eye on the community page. Like we said, we're looking for a new contributor or two for a new Monday night show. If you're up for that, then let Andy, let Paddy, or let Kaiser know, and we'll sort something out. I know we have to go. I'm afraid we have to go. We've got red wine to drink. We've got beers to drink. We've got Vimto to drink for Kaiser. We need to get going. And Paddy's probably got a Chinese on him as well. So
On the way.
as ever. So thank you so much. We'll see you on Wednesday night. Thank you for everything this evening. Love you.
All right, guys.
All the best.
Here, guys.
Legends.
Cheers.
Someday you will find